Have you ever heard of the girl who cried wolf?
Yeah, how do you know she's not faking it?
Ugh. Crap therapists say, that's terrible. Mended light. Hello everyone, and welcome to Crap Therapists Say, where we pull you, the viewer, to ask for terrible advice that you got from a therapist. Trigger warning, we're going to be talking about sexual assault. We won't go into graphic detail, but the idea that a woman who claims that she's been sexually assaulted is crying wolf, right?
What were you wearing?
Yes, the whole she was dressed a certain way, so she was asking to be assaulted, right?
Right, and it's the only form of assault that we ever even seek to pose that question, right? Like,
right.
If someone gets mugged, we don't say, oh, well, What were you
wearing?
What were you wearing? Were you waving around your wallet? Did you keep it hidden?
Yeah. And I think you were telling me we've got a video.
Yes.
Alicia's seen this. I've never seen it, so let's see.
It's awful. Yeah, but look what she's wearing. Asking for it.
If wearing a low-cut top means you're asking for it, I wonder what else we could ask for. Depending on what we wear.
Hi, can I help?
No, you're good.
Sorry, you can't go in there.
I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Just here for that promotion.
What?
You know, just asking for it.
But she doesn't even work here.
Right. I'm off.
Karen, where are you going? It's 2 o'clock.
I'm going on holiday, Alan.
Did you clear it with HR?
Didn't need to. Look at what I'm wearing.
You could have just asked.
Hello?
That one's a bit like you.
I do. Just waiting for my free Ferrari. I just really want a dog. Damn it! Chocolate cake.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, if you're playing for Arsenal, you're not going to want to eat this, are you? Better get back to training.
I'm not a footballer.
Oh. Oh, well, what do you expect us to think when you turn up wearing that? Asking for it.
Rinsed, sharp.
I contributed a movie clip.
You did.
Levity aside, which is fun, right? And to joke about, but it makes such a serious point, right? There is not a situation where you can ask to be assaulted.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't exist, right? And the fact that as a culture, in some way, shape, or form, that has been accepted is terrible, and it's tragic.
Well, you know what it is? Like, as a man, it's insulting. It's insulting because this is the standard that we hold men to in society, and then men follow suit because we just think boys will be boys. It's the idea that if I smear myself in honey and go to the Yukon, a bear's gonna eat me. Like, that would be, I was asking for it. But what are we saying about men? That if a woman's dressed a certain way, we have no self-control. We are literally telling men it's not your fault if you sexually assault somebody.
Well, and also at that point,
And that's insulting.
It is insulting, but at that point, you are no longer responsible for your own behavior.
Yes.
Which is completely not true. But these are the cultural lies that have been bought into.
Yeah.
To give men an excuse.
And in order for this to change, it can't just be women who change it. Men have to take a look and say, I'm not going to accept this narrative about what men are and what men can be. We are going to be something different. We're going to hold ourselves up to a higher standard. We are responsible for our thoughts. We are responsible for our behaviors. And the victim blaming means that women are in a place of vulnerability, both physically when it comes to physical danger, but then psycho-emotionally and socially, that not only are they the ones in danger of being assaulted, they're also going to be blamed, not believed, and despised for it and judged for it, which leads us to our next movie clip. This is from Promising Young Woman, which is the most pointed film I can think of on this subject. Carey Mulligan plays a woman whose friend was sexually assaulted, and then because of the judgment and the scorn and not being believed and just being...
And the domino effect of everything that happens after a sexual and physical assault.
And what it meant for her in her graduate studies and all these things, that her friend took her own life. So now Carey Mulligan is out to basically teach everyone a lesson, and she's going to confront one of their peers from school who enabled the shame and the judgment.
You know, I actually wanted to meet you today to talk about something in particular.
I did wonder. No one's heard from you in like forever.
I wanted to talk to you about why I dropped out.
Okay, sure.
You remember what happened, right?
Such a long time ago now.
I know, but you remember.
I mean, vaguely.
Do you ever think about it?
Why would I?
Right. Why would you? So if a friend came to you now, came to your house and told you that they thought something bad had happened to them the night before,
Cassie.
something bad,
It was years ago.
what would you say? What would you say?
Ugh. A little weird.
Would you roll your eyes behind her back and dismiss the whole thing as drama?
I don't know why you're mad at me. Okay, I'm not the only one who didn't believe it. If you have a reputation for sleeping around, then maybe people aren't gonna believe you when you say something's happened. I mean, it's crying wolf.
You thought I was crying wolf.
I don't make the rules. Look, when you get that drunk, things happen. Don't get blackout drunk all the time and then expect people to be on your side when you have sex with someone you don't want to.
That's a shame. I was hoping you'd feel differently by now.
Sorry.
For your sake, I was hoping you'd feel different by now.
If you have a reputation for sleeping around, don't expect anyone to be on your side when you get blackout drunk and have sex with someone that you didn't want to. There's the language in so much of that when she says, I don't make the rules. First of all, if you have a reputation for sleeping around, being sexually active is a choice. And sleeping with people is a choice. The issue is her friend didn't get blackout drunk. She was drugged. And then men took advantage of her. And yet, they don't point the fingers at the men, they point the fingers at her. Like, is there a truth of like, be as smart and as safe as you can in life?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But that doesn't mean you're responsible for the choices of other people. Sexual assault is something that was so taboo that everyone else just steps away from it.
Right.
And we don't want not only any complicity, but like anything to do with it.
Right.
And so we leave the victim holding the bag.
Well, and the reality is, I mean, so it's victim blaming, but some people, even women, will buy in and participate in the victim blaming. Because if the reality is there are dangerous people out there, dangerous men out there who will do dangerous things, then I could be hurt,
Yeah.
right? And then
It's so much easier to believe that there are specific rules that if you follow this won't happen to you. And
Right.
you didn't follow the rules, so it's your fault, instead of
Right.
facing the reality of,
And in that situation, even though they're doing the victim blaming, it's really not about the victim, it's about them.
Yeah.
It's about them keeping their paradigm so they can pretend to feel safe.
Yeah.
And this can take a lot of different forms, not even just this form, even though it's very valid. I had a friend who lives in a very predominantly Christian area, right?
Yeah.
And so the belief is like no sex out of marriage, right? She was an adult woman with adult children, and she was dating a man, a very prominent man. And wouldn't you know it, that man had a temper, and he could be physically and sexually aggressive
And violent,
and
yeah.
violent, right? And she had people say to her, well, it's your fault because you're sleeping with him and you're not married. She was like, the amount of shaming and
Yeah.
victim blaming that happened. And she said that she lost friends about, you know, being vocal about the abuse that she was experiencing. And she is a very measured person, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a mudslinging. It wasn't anything like that. She left the relationship. And she drew very clear boundaries. There was stalking issues. There was a lot of problems, right?
Yeah.
And because she was a single mother and he was a predominant businessman, there was a power differentiation. And
Yeah.
and it took years, and some people came back and apologized and told her they were sorry, right? But she said she went through so much alone and she lost so many friends. And it takes so many forms that's not just this.
well, and this man presented as, like you were saying, a very good person and a very upstanding person, and so people didn't want to believe it, right?
Right.
And so we fall into this dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy of we either believe the person who is making the allegations or we stand up for the accused. And
Right.
we feel like we have to pick one or the other.
It's an either or.
And it's not, because the fact is, there are many, many times that a person is assaulted by someone who acts differently in public than they are in private.
Right. Absolutely.
There are also times for different motives that people make false accusations and
Right.
completely destroy the reputation of a person who did nothing. And I'm going to be candid here, like the scariest day of my life was in college. I worked at a group home for at-risk teenage girls, and I showed up to work. And I loved my job. I loved because a lot of these girls had come from homes of sexual assault. They'd come from abusive backgrounds. To have a male in their life who just cared about them
Right.
and who didn't want anything salacious from them,
Right.
and just
a lot of unhealthy dynamics
Yes.
between male and female, and you could be a healthy.
yeah, it's something that they never had before. And it was very healing for them, and I loved the work. And I showed up to work one day and was told that I was being accused by one of the girls of coming on to her. And I was floored.
And you were in school to be a therapist.
And I was at school to be a therapist, and I hadn't done anything. And it was cleared up that afternoon.
Right.
I mean, because what had happened is this was a new girl in the home.
Yeah.
And she had said to the other girls, Jono is so hot, I'm going to sleep with him. And the other girls laughed because they said, Jono, he's like our brother.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like so many of them, because they came from sexual trauma backgrounds, like sexualized me just because I was male.
Right.
And within a couple of weeks, or a couple of days, they'd
Yeah.
see like just a healthy, caring presence
Right.
with strong boundaries, and that sexualization would switch off, and they were like, this is safe and this is good, right?
Right.
So I was terrified, and it was cleared up that afternoon when she said, yeah, I made the whole thing up, like, but that was the scariest day of my life. And I have sympathy for the fact that there are false accusations, but the point that I'm trying to make is we can make room
Yeah.
for if someone says I was sexually assaulted, like we don't have to take the accused and brand them as guilty and say that's
Right.
that. Like let the evidence come to light, but we can still protect this person. It's just like if someone in therapy says, I'm going to take my own life.
Right.
A lot of times they're not. A lot of times they don't mean it. It's a cry for help. You still treat it seriously,
Right.
right? And we need to do that in this case as well. But you can make room for, okay, and my employer did a really good job about it. They didn't just automatically say, you did this, we're having you arrested. They're like, you're on suspension until we
Right.
figure out what's going on.
Because we have to protect you, to protect her. This
And
is
to-
how we protect everybody involved.
Yes, and you know, and like and there was going to be an investigation. Fortunately, there wasn't, because
Right.
literally all the girls said to her, if this actually happened, then stick with your story. But if it didn't, please don't do this, because Jono's a good guy. And she dropped it.
Right.
And
right.
I was like, oh.
Well, and in that situation, it's not okay. Her behavior wasn't okay, but it was also coming from a place of trauma.
Yeah.
Which is not to justify the behavior, but it's to understand it.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
how do we support those people involved that are acting from a place of trauma?
I know there's a tendency when someone says I was assaulted to respond, well, they're crying wolf, and to protect the person who is accused. And we see that all throughout Promising Young Woman, right?
Right.
Okay, I mean, it's every guy's worst nightmare getting accused like that.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I was falsely accused, and I still feel like the most important thing to do is to believe the person when they say I was assaulted. By all means, innocent until proven guilty. We can make space for that while still protecting those who come forward, because you were saying it's a cry for
Right.
help no matter what,
Right.
right? And so we need to make space for both of those things. But always, always believe someone when they say, this happened to me, because in the very small minority where that's not what happened, it's still some other cry for help. And far more often than not, it actually is what they said it is.
Statistically, the majority of what's reported is not crying wolf, and statistically, only about 10 to 15% of the assaults that actually happen are reported.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, we invite you to check out How to Overcome Trauma from Emotional Abuse, which is the video that's going to pop up here at the end. And if you've been through actual trauma and through actual assault, that's the purpose of what we do here.
Yes, we have a incredibly supportive healing program called Innate Healing. You can go to mendedlight.com, you can check it out, and you can schedule an appointment to talk to one of our therapists to see if that program could be a good fit for you. Now, I know this is such a hard subject to talk about, and there's so many wounds wrapped up in this topic. So be kind to one another in the comments. So what support can you give to someone who has experienced this in their life? And what advice can you give to friends and loved ones so they can know better how to support?
And if you've been through this horrific ordeal, please get help, please get support. And obviously the comments are not an appropriate place to share specific details, but you can talk about what was helpful for you in your healing journey to share with the rest of our community. Until next time, folks, keep shining because we need your light.